welcome to the first of the Art of Video Games reviews. If you're part of my courses on Udemy, then you'll know what this is all about, hopefully. And this is the first one. So every month we're going to be doing some reviews of student art, some feedback on what you can do to take these sort of to the next level, perhaps. And these are the pieces chosen for this month. It's going to be fairly casual. I'm not going to be too mean or anything like that. But I'll try and do my best and give you some professional feedback, as I've been in the games industry for like around 30 years and seen quite a lot in my time. So if you're not a student on one of my courses on Udemy, then all the links are below and you can just click on there and jump on and learn how to create art for video games. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start with this bus up here. I'm not going to name the students this time around because I'm not sure if they wanted me to. I didn't ask, so I'm not going to do it this time. I'm just going to talk about the art, talk about the elements they've supplied to me, and hopefully they find it useful. So okay, so let's look at this bus and see. There's a few things with this I've got some comments on. First, the model. We're going to take a look at the model and then we'll talk about the textures in a little more detail. Yeah, so let's take a look at the model. Okay, so this is the model that was supplied, and he wants me to give him some feedback on this. I mean, the first thing I would say, I don't have any context for what these objects or images were created for. So I'm going to assume they were portfolio pieces, basically. And if they are, then this bus is way too low poly, basically. So what I would do with this, I would really up-res it or get a much higher detail version of this. And bake a normal map onto it, because looking at the images, let's just have a quick look at the image. Here it is. So it's quite low polygon, and you don't get a sense, you know, all these with the next generation consoles coming out, you need to be showing next generation art. If you want a chance of getting into video games, you got to show that kind of level of detail, that level of art, basically. I mean, if this is for like this might be for a mobile phone game, perhaps at this level, but it's not next gen console, not current gen console, because it's not got enough detail. I can look at the wheels. I can see the polygons. You can do much better than that. I would up-res them completely, even for the game model, and then take them right up and bake a normal map from a higher resolution onto this bus. You got things like these edges, which are a bit weird. And that's probably your smoothing groups. Yeah, it's just a lot of that's way too low poly. I would make the doors a separate piece, so they're actually functional pretty much. I would probably do windows which are separate, these doors are separate, just so as you can bake in a lot more detail. I can see you trying to keep quads there, but don't be afraid to, you know, this edge here, if you deleted that, you'd create a triangle. Don't be afraid to create the odd triangle. They're all triangles anyway. I can demonstrate that quite easily just by going like this. If I turn that into a mesh, object properties, turn that off, you can see they're all triangles. And this is a rigid object. It's not one that's going to bend or move or anything. So, you know, having the odd triangle here and there, it really doesn't matter. My feedback would be to do a much higher detail version, bake the normal back on it. You know, just looking at all these loops here you've got here. If you separated the doors off, like if you separated the front and the doors here, you could probably get rid of a ton of polygons here. But then bake it, you know, bake detail using a much higher version. That way you'd have a low polygon model with high detail from a higher mesh. You know, be careful with the profile. as well. You know, the wheels are obviously an obvious thing. That's just too low a poly there. I think I'm mumbling a bit here, but you get the idea. Okay, so let's look at the image of this now. The textures, he did give me the textures for the bus and I could apply them, but I can see what I need to see just using these here. And the first thing I would say is it's obviously an old bus, one that's broken down or parked or something. It's not in use anymore, but I think the green that's all over it is kind of not natural. You need to look at how things grow. You know, I would have probably gone for a much more rusty sort of look rather than this green look. It's not doesn't quite fit right with me. Here's a good example of a bus that's overgrown. You can see it's not too, that seems a bit contrived is the word I'm looking for, whereas this looks like it's properly grown on you. You know, big. It's got lots of bird crap all over it, all these white splats, which is good. The tires are in the ground, which, you know, if this is really old, it would have flat tires. You can put flat tires on that. You can see the bus doors half open here, and that kind of gives it a bit of character, which is quite cool. This isn't really telling a story, and it probably should. I don't know, why is it not used anymore? It looks like a good bus, but it's got all this green stuff all over it. Is there a reason for that? You know, if there is, then you should probably show it. Is it been in an accident? Is it just broken down, or is it about? It looks too modern to be sort of not used, if you know what I mean. Whereas this definitely looks like it's old, it's broken down, it's just non-functional. The door's open. You want to kind of have a look inside, see what's in there, and yeah, cool. And there's not much of a normal map on this either. I can't see, but you know, one of the big things about work from students is that because they can use a normal map, they really tend to use it a lot in extreme cases, and it kind of can look really bad. Whereas this doesn't look too bad. It looks pretty good. I would just have another look at this green stuff. I'm guessing it's moss or something all over it. You know, get some really good reference like this. Look at that moss. That's kind of mossy plants growing off there. Bird crap. You know, take reference like this. Let's see if we can find another one. Here's another one. Here's another image of some rundown bushes. Now this one's really interesting because it's got the rust. Rust is always quite cool to do because, you know, it's obviously been out in the weather. It's been rained on. You can see the rust where the rain sort of runs down the bus and causes these streaks, and that's pretty cool. That's a really nice thing. All the edges of the bus, the paintwork is all been, you know, it's all wearing off. Smashed window, that's really cool because that tells a bit of a story. It's like, how were these smashed? Were they just done because they're there? Some kids come along, smash them, put bricks through them or something, who knows. And you know, a sign on the bus is quite cool. Library services, that's an interesting. What's the backstory on that? Ask questions about the actual object itself. So this is kind of what it needs. It needs a bit of a story. You need to ask questions about it. I'm not seeing anything there that's intriguing me or asking any questions. You know, I'm curious what these sort of pictures are on the side of it. And why is that? What's that there? You know, there's a lot of detail on this that you could include in your bus here. I'm sure there should be. Is there not supposed to be a door on both sides of these things? It feels quite plain, even though you've got this green stuff all over it. it doesn't feel complete and it doesn't feel finished really. So if this is a portfolio piece, I would go over this and work some more, because I don't think moss would grow like that on this object. Especially down here like this, it's just sort of randomly painted on. You kind of got the right idea in that you sort of start to focus on the edges where the seams are, like around here, but I'd expect sort of rust to be in there. Add some detail. Give us a smashed window. I know that means putting an interior, but there's some things you can do to get around that. You can put a fake interior. Won't take that long. It's pretty straightforward. Now this is cool. If I was to do a bus as a set piece or an object that I want to show people as a portfolio piece, I would do something like this. It's far more interesting to look at. Look at, that's really cool, in fact. But it's broken down. It's obviously a wreck. It's dilapidated. You can see where all the rust is forming, where the rain hit it, where it's streaking down the bus. The windows are smashed out. I'm asking about these in my mind. What is this? Why is it like that? There's a lot of story, a lot of questions there. It's worn down. It's worn out. And it tells a bit of a story. Is that wood? It looks like wood. That's quite cool. That's quite interesting. So, turn that into that, if you know what I mean. It's just, as a piece, as a creative piece of art, this is far more interesting to look at. I'm not saying this is not interesting, but it's just pretty standard. It's not, you're not elevating yourself, pushing yourself. You're not providing anything out of the ordinary, if you know what I mean. Whereas if you showed me that, I'll be like, that's really cool. I can see that you've gone a bit further. You've looked for something creative. It's interesting to look at. It's got lots of different materials on it. Obviously got your paint and your rusty paint. It's got some chrome on here. It's got glass, wood. It's quite an interesting object to look at. Wheels are painted down here. So that would be my advice. That's the bus. Okay, so next up is this pen. Not a lot to say about this. It's a perfectly good model and really well done. Just pretty straightforward. He gave me a high version of this as well, which is here. Let's turn off edge faces so we can see it in a bit more detail. And that should bake extremely well onto this low model version. Very neat, very tidy. I made it brown just so I could see the geometry in a little more detail. Doesn't look like there's any wasted geometry there. If anything, you could add a bit more detail if you wanted to, but I don't think you really need to for what it is. Lots of detail, very smooth. It's going to do the job. Perfect. So what else can I say? Good model. I'd like to see some more creativity in these things, like from what you could do unless it's for a very specific project and somebody's asked you to specifically model this pen. Maybe I would cut it there, maybe make a glass sort of centerpiece with lots of little colored balls in it or something, just to make it a bit more interesting. Otherwise it's just your bog standard sort of pen really. It's like the bus, add some creativity to it, make it interesting to look at. Make people look at it and go, oh, that's an interesting pen, I've not seen one like that before, or something, whatever. But yeah, interesting, good model, and good work. Let me just turn the edges of that back on. Yeah, there we go. So nice job. Be interested to see the final article once you've textured it. Yeah, and here's the reference that he sent me. I mean, if you're beginning, it's probably a really great object to use as a as an example piece, as a little challenge for yourself. Can I model that pen? It's fairly straightforward, and yes, you certainly can. You've done a pretty good job there, so nice one. And don't forget to show us the final article. Okay, so let's move on to the next. Next up is this warrior. Now, I'm not a character artist, but I've been in the games industry for quite a long time, and I've worked with a lot of character artists, and I think I'm qualified to sort of know what I'm talking about here. Right, just look at the modeling of it. It's not the topology is not good for animation. Basically, it needs a lot of work. But aside from that, let's look at the way you've constructed it. It's all one model, and it doesn't need to be. For example, these boots, they could be separate so that the legs actually go inside the boots. You don't need to join them here like that. These bits of cloth here, I'm not sure why there's double edges there. It doesn't need to be double edges. These here, why is there double edges there? I'm confused as to why that is the case. So it's kind of wasted polygons there for sure. If this is cloth, which it is, I would space them out so that it's, if you're going to use this many polygons, just make use of them. Spread them out so the quads are evenly spaced, so that when it moves really gracefully. Whereas this, that up there is really close, and this down here is quite gappy. So just spread that out and make it look really a lot more even. The belt could be a lot more interesting. These arms and this torso is not modeled for animation. You start moving them and it's gonna cause some problems. Same with the back. You need to research topology. There's 3 things you need to do. Research topology, how characters are modeled. You need to look at anatomy, human anatomy, and study that for a while, and keep doing this because you're on the right track, and it's actually not a really bad model by any stretch. But for a game, you'll come across a lot of problems going forward if you use it like this. And I'm not entirely sure the proportions are quite right. They're not bad, but there's something not quite right up here. But you need to study anatomy. That's the other thing. These shoulder pads could be separate. The head, definitely separate the head. Put a bit of torso on the inside. I've already fed this information back to the artist who did this. So he should be doing that, and that, the collars are sticking out. You're going to come into problems if you try animating it like it is. The topology on these shoulder pads is a bit wonky. It's, it's a little bit untidy, and yeah, that's it basically, without going into too much detail. But it's a great start. You just need to take it another step further, do some research. These armpits look really low down. They need to be much higher. I think there's something not quite right up here. Just by looking at it, I can see that. It's not, if this is a main character, then you would need to take it another stage. You need to do some concept art. This is, I would say, first draft. You probably need to get 4, 5, 6 drafts of this going. These arms are a bit... I think he's got gloves on there or something. Yeah. But anyway, go to the next level. When we're doing characters in games, we iterate. We keep going and going and going. We don't build one and go, that's it. It's all about, and it's an iterative process. So don't be put off by feedback. If you're feeling bad about what I'm saying about this character, then you need to get used to that, because you're going to get it in the games industry over and over again. So I would iterate this more. Do the things I've said. Look at human anatomy. Look at topology. Study topology, how characters are modelled for games, and do another pass, and we'll check it again later. But great start. Okay, so let's move on to the next. Okay, so this is all I've got for this scene. I didn't get a model, I didn't get anything else, a couple of images, and he wants feedback based on what we can see here. Now, all I can see is a church, which looks interesting, a mud track, which again is interesting-ish, inside a forest, in the middle of a forest of some kind. It looks like a pine forest because it only looks like one tree you've used. And you can, that's a giveaway, these little tufts on the top of the trees. So I would say to this is, I mean, it's great looking. When you first see it, you think, yeah, that's interesting. Your eye is led along this dirt track. Nice depth perspective going on here with the fogging and your dark shadows up front. I would say the tree pines themselves look huge. If you look at these shadows on the ground, they look absolutely enormous. So I would look at the scale of these things. They don't quite look right. And then this church, I guess, it looks like it's just been dropped on some grass. There's no other human markings or objects in this scene other than that and this ploughed road or whatever it is. If this was my scene, I'd add a lot more detail to this. Maybe some fencing up the sides, a bit of a graveyard over here, perhaps a path going into the church, some dirt tracks, mud tracks, tire tracks, or something to give the impression that humans actually travel along here. Now there's some blood marks along here, which is intriguing. I want to know what that's all about. But overall, it's not saying too much to me. It's not telling me anything of a story. I don't know what this is or what it's used for. If it's a derelict, then it's not gone far enough. But if it's being used, then there's not enough human sort of evidence of that, if you know what I mean. It just needs to be more lived in if it's being used. But apart from that, as an overall piece, it's not so bad. It's actually certainly going in the right direction, and I think all you need to do is add another layer of detail to give us more information about what we're looking at here, because this dirt track just looks like it's been bulldozed. It's just gone, a bulldozer's gone through and scraped away the plants, and that's it, and left no markings behind. But if car or trucks come along here or whatever it is, you need to see evidence of that. So that's that, and this is pretty good. I like this. It's very cool. You know, maybe change the variety, have some more variety of trees here, because it looks like you've just used one, and it's the same one over and over again. I could be wrong, but that's just what it looks like. Okay, good job. Let's move on to the next. Okay, so next up is this Seahorse, which is actually fantastic. It's a ZBrush model, just to show you that it is the model. You can do things like that. So it is the actual model, and good job. It looks really good. If this is your intention, i.e. just a seahorse as is, then fantastic, you've done a great job. But if it's for like a centerpiece or a piece you want to really make something of, I would sort of take it a step further. First off, there's some bits missing from this. I'm not a seahorse expert, but I'm pretty sure, let me just go online and have a look. Web page here. Seahorses have these additional fins. You can see them on their backs, and this gives them the ability to propel themselves through the water. They also got little fins, like an anal fin there, and let me see if I can find one. Let's turn that off a minute, with a fin down below. That one there, perhaps. It's got a little fin underneath, you can see it there, and that one there. It's just to give them balance and like I say, to propel them through the water. So that's kind of what's missing from this as a that one's got a few fins there on the side. It's got, you can see a little one here. I've actually got a book on water creatures, and I flick through it from time to time, and that's kind of why I noticed that it needs those fins if you're going to keep it as a seahorse. But my recommendation would be is to turn it into a sea dragon. Sea dragons are really awesome. Let me just show you some of these sea dragons, because they're much more interesting, and it wouldn't take much to do. Let me see here. As a creative piece of art, a sea dragon would be phenomenal. These are sea dragons. I mean, look at these. Fantastic. I mean, that looks like a dragon in itself almost. Really interesting markings, really interesting things coming off them. I mean, they look like, it just looks like a plant almost, you know, and there's some really cool looking different colored ones. Yeah, really cool. Look at that. That's a pink one. That's pretty cool. And it'd be really easy to do something like this. You can just get your snake hook brush if you like, and, you know, really start doing some interesting sort of you know, fins, and just, oops. You know, just interesting markings and things, and then you can make it all different colors, and I think it would just look really fantastic if you could do that. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but you get the idea. It just, as a creative piece, it would look really interesting to do something like that. And then give it its little fins at the back here. You know, make it more interesting, something like that. But this is a great looking sculpt, and you know, if you don't want to do these things to it, that's fine. But you know, putting that extra sort of detail into it would take it another level up, and then giving it some color would also make it look fantastic. And you know, colouring in ZBrush is pretty easy, fairly straightforward. You know, you can easily colour in here. I'm just going to break it now completely. Oops, turn off. I need to go to my standard brush, RGB. You know, you can have a lot of fun with all the different sort of colours in here. I would make that beak just much longer, something like that. Yeah, just have a lot of fun with it, and you can do lots of variations with this. It could be really cool. So that's it. Great job. Lovely looking sculpt. I really look forward to seeing where you take this and seeing what it's like when it's complete, if you indeed are going to take it to the next level. So great job, and that's it. The September reviews are now open, so if you want to submit work for that, you can do. Also, if you're not one of the students, then you can look at my courses on Udemy by accessing the links in the description below. So I look forward to seeing you there. Okay, that's it. Bye for now.